Hey there, Bridgette Dolgoff, Conscious of Economics, Part 2. So, yeah. Anyway, also I had to let it go because one of the people on the property, had to come here and chat with me. And, it always turns into, well, you can't believe, what this person's doing. More drama and conflict. Anyway, so I wanted to finish this, Part 2, with reptilian control. There's good, I think there's good ancient reptilians, but they don't, let's just say that a lot of the beings that are higher evolved, stay out of our space because they are not concerned whether we're going to get it or not going to get it. Because the deal is that we'll just eventually be wiped off the planet again. And the beings who are harvesting us, harvesting our soul and everything else, will just harvest us, our biological material and our soul by putting them in electronic chambers. And that's what the heaven experience is. Tractor beam light. Same as a UFO. They pull you in and then, they hold you hostage in electronic prison until, they get you back down here because it's a slave planet. So the good beings, stay. I think there's like several levels. I think there's the lower ones, they're all going to be really intelligent. You can't do mass takeovers and control whole populations on a planet if you're not intelligent. But we'll just call them like the lower ones. Then there's the mid ones. And then there's the higher evolved ones. And then the higher evolved ones, they don't have an agenda. And they're not really attached to what's going on here on planet Earth. There's vast multi-dimensions, vast galaxies, vast universes. It goes for anyone to be focused in on one planet is ludicrous, especially one that has like a whole bunch of retarded people living on it. And people who were manufactured to be slaves, right? Like robots, we're like robots and we're easy to control and they know exactly what our functions are and how to get, keep our functions going a little higher. So one of the things that I've really noticed, so the higher evolved beings don't really give a rat's ass. And then you have like the mid-grade beings who are participating in a battle, drama, fight, polarity with the lower ones who are controlling the planet. And a lot of that stuff is like also kind of insignificant because we live in a polarity. And that is what happens in a polarity, right? It's a seesaw. So the light is down here, or, the seesaw. So the light gets out of balance. The light raises, fights the darkness. Then the seesaw, then it goes like this. So it's a constantly going up and down and it never ends. There's never neutrality. So a lot of my teachers have always taught me about balance and 4 points. This is where like the 4 directions and the 4 seasons and a lot of these things come into play is because 4 is a balanced place to be. You can't pivot off of it. There's no seesaw. There's more of a structure to consider. There's more things to consider. So what I really start to see as doing traditional osteopath work and rebooting the brain and trying to get people into their alpha human state, because I really believe that there has to be both. You have to have, your left hemisphere and your right hemisphere working in unison. Then you start moving into the unified field, if you want, or, So I'm starting to see people, they start to look like reptiles. these people have these hunchbacks. I mean, when you look at a lizard, it has that hunchback. And then they're snapping, like the worse the hunchback gets, or the worse that their neck is misaligned from their shoulders, it's not straight. The more snappy they become, the more obsessed they become. And most of it becomes in their mind. And then they're in like full on survival mode, mine. And so the left hemisphere, dishes out a lot of acid, cortisol production, because you're in, flight or fight all the time. And so you've been lowered to a reptile in your consciousness. And sometimes we get too far along, we get into the right hemisphere, and then we're too out of this world, and we don't have any contact, really as much contact as needed with the body, and then the body gets mad and dies. So that's not really helpful either. So there's something in between called the alpha, so the right brain is going into the whole delta. Then you've got the left brain that's running, lower brainwave patterns, beta, if you will. And then you want to get to the alpha. The alpha brainwave pattern is where both hemispheres are in sync. They're working together. Past, present, and future are happening simultaneously. All the connections are there. The body is doing really well, the biosuit, and everything's perfect. So that's where we need to head. But more and more I see so many people reptiled out. Now, in this whole deal, we're not going to, we could say, well, it's because in the Western, civilization, we were trained early on, preschool, left brain lateralized, numbers and language and training and education and vocabulary, and potty trained super early, and forced, let's just say subliminal, it's all subliminal mind control, because children are in delta, which is right brain, spirit kind of thing, downloading information in a non-attached way, but then they start to learn competitive behavior and all this other stuff, potty trained early, blah, 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 blah. And it forces their right hemisphere to be used as a computer program against them, as a subconscious pre-programming. So then, the child develops, and it's easy to control, and it's, once it moves into alpha brainwave pattern, it totally bypasses that into the beta. So you start to see childhood diseases, and all these other things, because they really haven't had a lot of proper right brain function through the first 7 years, because it's been used as a hard drive program against them, and hasn't been utilized for ultimate potential. And so then they move right into the beta, into the reptilian place. So, yeah. And you can see it in a lot of different areas. I've talked to a lot of people in schools, especially elementary schools. I would never let my kid go to a public school just because of all the raping that's going on, especially between little boys. Boys, a lot of raping that's going on in the bathrooms and everything else, from little boys to other little boys. And it's so prevalent, I think people would be shocked to know what's happening. But, most people are reptiled out, so they don't really care. I've had people say to me, well, I was molested. Like, it's normal. So it's okay if your grandkids are being molested. It's okay if all this is taking place because you have a school, a free babysitter. That's so reptilian. That's the, lizard laying eggs and walking away from them, never really caring if they hatch or what happens to them. There's no nurturing or caring. There's that, you're on your own from day one. So, obsession, so this is how it plays out in a lot of those realms. And what I see, even if I'm on conscious communities, it's the same thing. You've always got these people that are all reptiled out. Someone doesn't like someone. There's issues, there's poking from each side, there's domination, control, and most of it is subtle. And it gets more and more as it builds and becomes more and more aggressive and territorial as, the passive aggressive behavior accelerates. And you start to see it with obsession. People becoming really obsessed, trying to figure out, well, what did that person say? What did they mean? I mean, they'll go on for months over it. I mean, people will go on sometimes lifetimes over it. It's like, I get to where sometimes I'm dealing with clients, on the life coaching kind of end. And I'm just like, they're like, okay, so, what am I going to do about it? It's like, okay, well, this is the 6th time we've had this discussion over the same issue. Let go. Let it go. Because this is your demise, right? So the more obsessed you become and the more that you're holding on to this, you can't get out of your box. You can't go back to school and learn something. You can't figure out what your path is and what you want to do, because all of your energy is obsessed about controlling other people, dominating them, being obsessed about everything that comes out of their mouth, and trying to figure out how you can be right and how you can one-up them, right? So this is all that left brain stuff. It's in that survival kind of patterning. And at some point, you have to tell yourself to let this stuff go, because it's causing cancer in you. You're losing vital life source over it. You're aging rapidly, and you're a lizard or a snake at the lowest, consciousness. This is how you're behaving. You're striking out, or you're curled up, you're rattling your tail, giving out the warning. And then, and then people will say to me, well, they deserved it. I finally punched them in the face, and they deserved it because, I've had to deal with them for months. Well, no, you didn't deal with them, because there was no honest sit down and communication. And the fact that people don't want to leave these situations and they keep, accelerating is a testament that, the obsession, the passive aggressive behavior, the reptilian mind, that, there just needs to be fighting and drama and chaos, because this is all that it wants to participate in, when it would be so much easier just to leave and never look back, right? And then we have all these other weird things that get involved in all of it, that we like to insert, kind of a thing, when, the whole situation is completely unhealthy and we spend lifetimes in the same patterns over and over and over again. It isn't that you can't get along with other people. It's this: every time that you show up, you still show up as you, unchanged. And that means that you can't get along with other people. So the outcomes are always going to be the same over and over and over again. And it's you. And it's probably them, but it's mostly you, because you want to continue to participate. And at some point you have to stop participating and you have to go down a new road, right? So real quick, because at 15 minutes, it won't let me upload this. So I think it's in the Inner Child Workbook for NAAA, ND, Narcotics, Drugs Anonymous. Anyway, so I was walking down the road and I fell into a big, deep hole. It was dark, couldn't find my way out. Number 2, I was walking down the same road, fell into the big, dark hole, couldn't see anything, couldn't get out. 3rd, I was walking down the road, I fell into the big hole. I looked up, I could see the light. 4th time, I was walking down the road, I fell into the hole, I saw the light, I climbed out and got out. 5th time, I walked down a different road. All right. Anyway, that's all I have to say today. Hopefully, these are really hard things to talk about. But I really want people to help change their scenario, and changing your scenario is how you change yourself and how you deal with the outside world. So choose a different road long before you're forced to, or you fall into the big dark hole. Obsession, compulsive, fear. Okay. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.